Hey everybody, week 2 is through. Let's take a look at the matchups and get a preview for week 3. And in our first matchup, we have the 1-0 I Have a Chubb taking on 1-0 Take Mahomes Country Road, battling for NFC West supremacy. For I Have a Chubb, Russell Wilson had an awesome game, 44.52 points. It didn't look like it was going to be pretty against that tough New England defense, as on his first pass attempt, Russell Wilson threw a pick 6, but he did settle down and had a really nice game. Ezekiel Elliott, 20.4 points in a nearly overtime thriller in Dallas. Then for his wide receivers, DJ Moore finally had a nice showing for him with 26.2 points despite having a poor showing in week 1. Kareem Hunt, 23.9 points. The same could be said for him. Poor showing in week 1, but came out and did well in week 2. Malcolm Brown, I believe, is injured, the last that I heard, and didn't do much in week 2 with only 4.7 points. On the other side of things, we had Patrick Mahomes, who they had a great overtime thriller there in Kansas City, 34.18 points. A great game for him, although Patrick Mahomes did take some pretty serious shots in that game against a tough San Diego defense. Tyler Lockett with 20.45 points, and Melvin Gordon with 16.1, both showed nice games. And take a look at the Colts defense. A couple of years ago, you might think of the Colts and think, they've never had a good defense, but putting up 23 points against that Minnesota offense where Kirk Cousins threw 3 picks and a few fumbles as well along the way. So your final score in this one, closer game than what it looks like. They're really that Sunday night game kind of pulled ahead a lot for I Have a Chubb, but the final score in this one was I Have a Chubb 181.37 to Take Mahomes Country Road 156.48. And in week 3 matchup, the 1-1 Take Mahomes Country Road will be taking on 1-1 Little Moose in the Millsap, and the 2-0 I Have a Chubb will be taking on the 0-2 Gronky Kong. I do have a quote here from I Have a Chubb of the upcoming matchup against Gronky Kong. Quote, "Tell Kim if she thinks she's winning next week, she's Gronky wrong." So we'll have to keep an eye on that matchup. And to our next matchup, we had the 0-1 Lil Loose in the Millsap taking on the 0-1 Gronky Kong. Lil Loose in the Millsap got a big game again from Matt Ryan with 38.92 points. Alvin Kamara had an incredible game with 40.25 points. Really benefited from the lack of Michael Thomas and the focus on the running game, as well as being a major part of the passing game for the New Orleans offense. Peyton Barber could get nothing going, only got 0.1 points, but he didn't need that. He didn't need Barber's help because Amari Cooper got 20.9 points, Tyler Higbee with 29.55 points, and John Brown with 23 points. And even the Buccaneers defense throwed in 14 points for him. On the other side of things, Gronky Kong really struggled again this week. Ben Roethlisberger was the quarterback to go with, did do better than Drew Brees, got 24.14 points, but the running backs are continuing to kill this team. Cam Akers, only 1.3 points, Adrian Peterson, 4.1 points, Adam Thielen, that Minnesota offense would get nothing going against the Colts. He only got 6.65 points. Marquez Valdes-Scantling was her best player besides the quarterback, offensively speaking. Sterling Shepard went down with an injury. The Browns defense let her down. So quite a few things that need to be tweaked here for this team to remain competitive throughout the rest of the year. That's going to be difficult with some injuries. The most notable, the first overall pick for Gronky Kong, which was 4th in the draft. Michael Thomas, the wide receiver, is out still with an injury, so we'll have to see if that can be recovered. Overall, the final score of this one was Lil Loose in the Millsap moving up to 1-1 with 194.22 points to Gronky Kong falling to 0-2, 103.79. And in week 3 action, Gronky Kong will be taking on the 2-0 I Have a Chubb, and the 1-1 Lil Loose in the Millsap will be taking on the 1-1 Take Mahomes Country Road. And after the matchup, I had a chance to catch up with the leader of Gronky Kong, Kim. Hi Kim, you're on to the show here. Just wanted to catch up with you and ask what happened in week 2.
Well, you know what, Tyler? You told me to draft these players. Why don't you just tell me?
And in our next matchup, we had the 1-0 Show Me Your TDs taking on the 1-0 at LCL Tear. For Show Me Your TDs, Carson Wentz went out and got 12.98 points in what is a struggling Philadelphia offense right now. Chris Carson with 20.85 points, though, was a nice bounce back, as well as Deontay Johnson and DK Metcalf with 25 points each. The Chiefs defense got him no points, and what really hurt this team was Saquon Barkley going down with an injury. I think this matchup could have been a lot more close and competitive if Saquon would have had his normal solid or big game. On the other side of things here for LCL Tear, Kyler Murray with a big game, 35.74 points. He really looks to be settling in his second year. DeAndre Swift was the top getter for points for the Detroit Lions backfield, 13.95 points. DeAndre Hopkins continues to be just as good as he was in Houston, and that duo he's got going with Murray and Hopkins getting him the points, really helping him. CeeDee Lamb had a nice game with 23 points with just an offensive showdown in Dallas. And Julian Edelman with 37 points. He seems to be developing a nice chemistry with Cam Newton. Your final score in this one is Show Me Your TDs 147.13 to Ed LCL Tears 186.14. So now the 2-0 Ed LCL Tear will be taking on the 1-1 Adrian's Daycare, and the 1-1 Show Me Your TDs will be taking on the 0-2 Greg's Lobos. Where do we go to our next matchup? We have the 0-1 Adrian's Daycare taking on the 0-1 Greg's Lobos. Jared Goff went out and got him 31.98 points for Adrian's Daycare, drew 3 touchdowns. Austin Eckler, despite splitting the load in the backfield for the Chargers, still managed to get 20.9 points. Keenan Allen with 21.25. Devontae Adams did go down with an injury, but although it looks like he will be okay to play for next week. Odell Beckham Jr. just recently acquired in a trade, got him 21.4 points. He had over 70 yards receiving and a touchdown, a big touchdown. And the Steelers got him 17.5 points on defense. For Greg's Lobos, Dwayne Haskins had an okay game, 15.62 points. Derrick Henry was pretty much shut down for Tennessee, only got him 8.4 points. And Jonathan Taylor, now with Marlon Mack out, is the man in Indianapolis at the running back position with 18.2 points. Wide receivers were mostly held in check, under 10 points. George Kittle, who is out, unfortunately was started, as this person is not actually playing. So that didn't get him any points. And David Montgomery had a nice showing for Chicago with 24.65 points. Overall, here your final score. Adrian's Daycare with the victory moves to 1-1, 174.03, and Greg's Lobos will fall to 0-2, 131.57. And in week 3 matchups here, we have the 1-1 Adrian's Daycare will be taking on the 2-0 at LCL Tear, and the 0-2 Greg's Lobos will be taking on the 1-1 Show Me Your TDs. In our next matchup, we had the 1-0 pesky Tampa Two-Steppers taking on the 1-0 Team Lawrence. For the Tampa Two-Steppers, who scored the most points last week, Dak Prescott had a massive game, mostly in the second half of that Dallas game, leading the Cowboys to a victory. He got 45.2 points and threw for over 400 yards. Josh Jacobs put up a good game for the new Las Vegas Raiders, 12.65 points. Miles Sanders had a nice showing as well for the Eagles, who are struggling on offense but seem to have the running game down, got 22.15 points. Calvin Ridley is putting up bigger numbers than Julio Jones in Atlanta, got 34.85 points, and Hayden Hurst, the tight end for Atlanta, 21.5 points. On the other side of things, Team Lawrence had a great game out of Joe Burrow, who threw quite a few pass attempts more than I think the Cincinnati offense would like him to be doing in a competitive game against the Browns. He got him 34.24 points. Dalvin Cook, struggling Minnesota defense, or offense rather, got him 16.2 points, probably their best player at this point in time. David Johnson went down with an injury, only got him 7.9 points. A.J. Brown was completely put in check, did not have a single reception or any yards from scrimmage on the day, got him 0 points. That really hurt this team. Terry McLaurin seems to be the only guy to be catching balls in Washington, 32.05 points, and a good showing for Noah Fant with 20 points. Overall, there was no catching the Tampa Two-Steppers this week. The Tampa Two-Steppers, who up to 2-0, with getting 215.1 points. That was the most scored this week. The Team Lawrence scoring 134.84. He'll fall to 1-1. And in week 3 action, the Tampa Two-Steppers will be taking on the 0-2 Ray Rice Counseling, and the 1-1 Team Lawrence will be taking on the 1-1 Same Darnold Jets. To our next matchup, we have the 0-1 Same Darnold Jets taking on the 0-1 Ray Rice Counseling 2.0. For the Same Darnold Jets, Matthew Stafford had a solid game with 21.16 points. Nick Chubb had a great game with 26.35 points, and Tyler Boyd, recently acquired in a trade, had a nice game for him as well with 21.45 points. Jonnu Smith, spoken about in last week's interview, went out and got 29.4 points, as the strategy here for the Same Darnold Jets is to keep Mike Gesicki, one of the best tight ends in the league, fresh on the bench. From the bench, he did score 33.2 points. but this didn't end up hurting or costing the Sam Darnold Jets. Robbie Anderson, who I've been assured is the best wide receiver in the league, did have another nice game with 21.15 points. On the other side of things, the Ray Rice Counseling 2.0 started Jimmy Garoppolo out of all of his quarterbacks, and unfortunately Jimmy Garoppolo went down with an injury, and that could be seen as what may have cost this team. Ray Rice Counseling must be kicking himself for not starting Cam Newton. That would have gotten him the win this week. Todd Gurley was mostly held in check with only 6.1 points. Leonard Fournette had a great game with 25.5 points, and Tyreek Hill scored late and big and got 27.45 points. Darren Waller is unstoppable, the tight end for the Las Vegas Raiders, and got 28.4 points. Overall, this was our closest matchup of the week, but Sam Darnold Jets do squeak out a victory here, scoring 166.81 points to Ray Rice Counseling's 157.24. The quarterback collector will have to reevaluate his quarterbacks here as Jimmy Garoppolo is injured, and we'll see what he does for Week 3. And speaking of Week 3 action, the 1-1 Sam Darnold Jets are taking on the 1-1 Team Lawrence, and the 0-2 Ray Rice Counseling will have his work cut out for him, taking on those pesky Tampa two-steppers at 2-0, who've scored back-to-back the highest points in the league. And to our next matchup, we had another close one, Madden 1993 edition taking on Making Sundays Great Again, both teams coming to this game 0-1. Deshaun Watson was held mostly in check with 18.2 points. James Conner had a nice bounce-back game, as well as Mike Evans. Mike Evans finally getting some connections with Tom Brady, with Chris Godwin out. He got 27.85 points. That was a good game. Julio Jones, only 5.1 points. Seems like Calvin Ridley may be the go-to guy right now in Atlanta. On the other side of things, Making Sundays Great Again had a big game from Josh Allen with 44.88 points. That's back-to-back big games for Josh Allen. Kenyon Drake and Clyde Edwards-Helaire, the running backs, were held mostly in check with just above 10 points each. Cooper Kupp had a solid game, but Sammy Watkins and Jared Cook really didn't get much going in their game. Sammy Watkins was also injured. If you saw the game, he took a big hit and had to be taken out of that game for a little while. I'm not sure if he actually returned. Only 2.35 points for him. Last week, Making Sundays Great Again was in the closest matchup, and we pointed out that had Benny Snell been put into the game, she would have actually gotten the win. Unfortunately, Benny Snell here got negative 1.15 points. And this is the first time we've seen a starter get negative points. And had Cortland Sutton been the person in to that flex position, Making Sundays Great Again would have gotten the win. So unfortunately, a roster change here that most of us might have agreed with ended up costing her this time. Final score here, Madden 1993 edition with 133 points, Making Sundays Great Again to 120.63. Madden 1993 edition moved up to 1-1, Making Sundays Great Again falls to 0-2. And in Week 3 action, the 1-1 Madden 1993 edition we're taking on the 1-1 Go Fisk Yourself. That ought to be a good matchup. And the 0-2 Making Sundays Great Again, we're taking on the 2-0 Vic's Dog Sitting Service. And now our last matchup of the week, we had the 1-0 Vic's Dog Sitting Service taking on the 1-0 Go Fisk Yourself for battling for first place in the AFC East. For Vic's Dog Sitting Service, Aaron Rodgers with another good game, 23.55 points. But the main story for the Packers was Aaron Jones's 49 points that he collected with over 150 rushing yards on the day, as well as some receiving yards and touchdowns as well. Raheem Mostert broke a 75-yard run in the first quarter, but unfortunately was injured in that game early and was taken out. Still managed to get 18.5 points, though, before he was taken away. T.Y. Hilton, another disappointing game for him. I really thought that him and Phillip Rivers would have a nice connection. He'd fill into that Keenan Allen role that Phillip Rivers had developed with his wide receiver in San Diego. That hasn't worked out so far. Only 6 points from tight T.Y. Hilton. Deshaun Jackson, my deep threat, did get 13.7 points, and Travis Kelce, doing what Travis Kelce does, had another nice game, catching a touchdown, 25.35 points. On the other side of things, Go Fisk Yourself had a pretty quiet game for Lamar Jackson standards, still got him 21.36 points. Christian McCaffrey was at 26.3 points before he was taken out of the game with an injury, unfortunately. And we'll have to see what the Carolina offense can do, as he really, all offense runs through Christian McCaffrey on that Carolina team. Teddy Bridgewater is going to have to step it up, or perhaps a running back replacement. Latavius Murray, 5.5 points. Stephon Diggs with another nice game, 37.8 points. That Buffalo offense is clicking. And unfortunately, Rob Gronkowski for Go Fisk Yourself did not get a single point this week. Overall, your final score here, Vic's Dog Sing Service getting the victory, 182.6 to 148.26 for Go Fisk Yourself. Vic's Dog Sing Service moving up to 2-0. Go Fisk Yourselves falls to 1-1. In week 3, the 2-0 Vic's Dog Sing Service will be taking on the 0-2 Making Sundays Great Again, and 1-1 Go Fisk Yourself will be taking on 1-1 Madden 1993 edition. Quick check-in on our standings after week 2 in the AFC East. Vic's Dog Sing Service on top with 2-0. AFC West, Tampa Two Steppers have a firm hold at 2-0. In the NFC East, El Ciote leads the pack at 2-0, and in the NFC West, I Have a Chubb is on top at 2-0. For the season stats so far, the most points for there are the Tampa Two Steppers with 389.84, and in second place is I Have a Chubb, 39 points behind with 350.8 points. But the top 4 teams in points for are all division leaders. And unfortunately, the lowest points getter so far is Gronky Kong with 209.34. And we'll take a peek at the power rankings after week 2. Madden 1993 edition, who was originally slated as the best drafted team, will move back to the number 4 position. I Have a Chubb holds that number 2 spot from last week. The Tampa Two Steppers move from the number 6 up to the number 1 spot. Show Me Your TDs falls from the number 4 to the number 10. And Take Mahomes Country Road falls from number 5 to number 13. Some big fallbacks there. Gronky Kong is going to fall from the number 9 to the last spot. Making Sundays Great Again, losing those 2 close matchups, falls to number 8 to 15. Some big step forwards. Adrian's Daycare originally was the last place team, now up at the number 9. Vic's Dog Sing Service, originally the second to last team, is up to the number 8 position. Ed LCL, last year's champion, was originally slated at the number 10 spot, is now at the number 3 spot. Well, like I said last week, we'll have to make our adjustments for injuries, and this is before COVID has affected the league at all, so that could make things even more difficult to fill out a roster. I'll talk to you all next week.